2 weeks ago, we delved into the differences between Kubrick and Clarke's versions of 2001, A Space Odyssey. If you haven't seen that video,
click this little thingy on the screen or that link there in the box and watch that part first.
If you have seen it, congratulations on understanding basic human things like what order to watch things in. You're ready to graduate to Netflix. You're also more evolved than these other plebs. Anyway, we left you waiting for HAL 9000 and the rest of the novel/movie, so let's just jump in. I'm Michael Truly.
And I'm Casey Redmond, so without further ado and no restraint on spoilers,
what's the difference? Part 2. In the film, Kubrick seems more interested in whether HAL has emotions.
Do you believe that HAL has genuine emotions?
Well, he acts like he has genuine emotions. Of course, he's programmed that way to make it easier for us to talk to him. But as to whether or not he has real feelings is something I don't think anyone can truthfully answer.
We are then treated to differences in Bowman and Poole's day-to-day activities.
In the novel, we learn about their immaculately planned daily routine, how Poole and Bowman never sleep at the same time, and about all the tedious, seemingly useless work that the crew does despite HAL's ability to take care of it all. Bowman reads the Odyssey as the ship passes through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and they send a probe to collect data from the asteroid uneventfully, and head towards Jupiter to do even more probing. In the novel, nothing comes for millions of miles, but Bowman sometimes listens to the growling low-frequency sound of Jupiter's own radio voice.
The film skips all of this and jumps right ahead, exploring the loneliness of a birthday transmission.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Clarke writes of Poole's frustration with the time lag, but that it was also a blessing in disguise.
Now in the abyss, he had moved into a new dimension of remoteness, and almost all emotional links had been stretched beyond the yield point. In both the novel and the film, HAL informs us that a satellite will go 100% failure within 72 hours.
In the novel, HAL gives us a condescending amount of description as to what has gone wrong. Poole ventures out into space to repair it, and upon his return, Poole and Bowman share their skepticism over HAL's functionality, reporting their concern with HAL back to the Earth base. Much of this remains in the film, although the timeline of communication with Earth is explored in more detail in the novel.
In the film, when they learn that the twin 9000 unit on Earth can predict nothing wrong, they confront HAL, who in turn blames it on human error.
In the novel, the two men speak politely in full sight of HAL as their colleague, and they did not wish to embarrass him.
In Kubrick's version, Poole and Bowman then share their concerns with each other in private, but HAL can read lips. When we return after the film's intermission, Poole is back outside spacewalking near the pod that the novel refers to as Betty.
Poole asks HAL to swing the light around, which he does, but HAL breaks protocol and does not acknowledge the request.
Poole's instincts go off. Something is wrong, but before he can do anything, Betty comes hurling towards him at full throttle.
Clarke adds,
Frank Poole would be the first of all men to reach Saturn.
Ouch. Meanwhile, inside the Discovery, Bowman screams so violently that only the restraining straps held him in his seat.
In the film, he gets distressed in the same way YouTube comments get when we mispronounce a word, and then heads out into space without his helmet.
In the novel, Bowman wonders if HAL killed Poole, since it's protocol to wake one of the other crew members from hibernation. So Bowman doesn't really trust HAL any longer, and the two argue about who will have control over the hibernaculum, but eventually HAL gives in.
In the film, upon returning to the Discovery, HAL tries to kill Bowman by keeping him locked out indefinitely.
HAL!
In the novel, while the crew awakens, Bowman hears the airlock of the ship opening. It is herein that Clarke explains what went wrong with HAL, and how the three hibernating astronauts and HAL were the only ones who knew the real purpose of the mission. Poole and Bowman were to be kept in the dark, but keeping this a secret caused an internal tension inside of HAL. When Bowman threatens to disconnect HAL, it triggers what we can only describe as an electrical fight or flight. In essence, we now know that HAL has not gone crazy, because computers don't go crazy, but that HAL was so determined to complete the mission that he would do it with or without human accompaniment, which sounds pretty batshit crazy! With air flowing inside the ship, Bowman finds his way into a sealed room labeled emergency shelter, but the hibernating crew suffocates in their hibernation chambers.
In the film, his return to the ship is way more dramatic. Kubrick and Clarke both go right into the process of disconnecting HAL.
In the novel, Bowman thinks,
I'd never imagined I'd be an amateur brain surgeon carrying a lobotomy beyond the orbit of Jupiter.
but here you are!
In the film, Bowman is rather inhuman as he disconnects HAL. I wonder if he can feel pain.
Bowman ponders in the novel as he pulls out the little unit marked Ego Reinforcement.
In the film, Hal cries out for Dr. Langley, Kubrick's nod to the work of the scientists who built the early Iliac computers.
But in the novel, it is Dr. Chandra, a character from the later novels and subsequent film, with a full name that we're not going to even try to pronounce, because, you know.
In both the book and movie, Hal shuts down while singing Daisy.
Apparently, in the 1960s, Arthur C. Clarke went to a Bell Labs demonstration of an IBM 704 that was singing the song Daisy Bell.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer. I'm pale crazy, all for the love of you.
In the film, when Bowman finally disconnects Hal, a pre-recorded message from Floyd appears, explaining the true nature of their mission.
In the novel, he first sends a transmission back to Earth explaining everything that has happened. He doesn't receive Floyd's message until 2 hours afterwards, and Floyd leaves Bowman with these words.
At the moment, we do not know whether to hope or fear. We do not know if, out on the moons of Saturn, you will meet with good or with evil, or only with ruins 1,000 times older than Troy.
Bowman is then forced to wait months alone on a ship with only his thoughts. Very profound thoughts about relativity, the nature of evolution, and wormholes. That sort of thing, until reaching Saturn.
Kubrick skips the shit out of all of this and takes us directly to the final monolith, floating right above Jupiter. Right about now is where the shroom should be kicking in, and the film goes full-on psychedelic.
What Clarke explains in the novel in great detail is that the final floating monolith is like a portal. Call it Stargate. For 3 million years, it had circled Saturn for a moment of the destiny that might never come. An ancient experiment was about to reach its climax. And so, the man in the pod that shot from the rod-shaped spaceship is about to complete an experiment conducted by unseen extraterrestrials some 3 million years ago in an effort to promote the development of the evolutionary process. Who didn't get that from the movie?
We learn in the novel that the originators of the experiment had first outgrown their extraterrestrial bodies, then implanted their brains into computers, and ultimately freed themselves entirely of matter and time by storing their thoughts in light. Bowman's final recorded words before entering the Stargate are,
"The thing's hollow. It goes on forever and... oh my god, it's full of stars!" This trippy sequence through the Stargate is the final journey for man as we know him, and Bowman travels through a grand central station of the galaxy, passing the alien landscapes! Wow!
This is when the prehistoric ape-man experiment finally yields results. In the final sequence of the film and the book, Bowman finds himself inside the White Room. Clarke writes, "So that was how the reception area had been prepared for him. His hosts had based their ideas of terrestrial living upon TV programs. His feeling that he was inside a movie set was almost literally true."
Bowman hesitates to remove his helmet, but once he does, he finds food and water are abundant. In familiar but blurry boxes throughout the kitchen, Bowman finds the only item on the menu is a blue goop.
And it doesn't taste half bad.
Where Kubrick eloquently develops a sequence of a man watching himself age, Clarke brings Bowman to bed from exhaustion.
David Bowman slept. His life was unreeling like a tape recorder playing back at ever-increasing speed. In an empty room, floating amid the fires of a double star 20,000 light years from Earth, a baby opened its eyes and began to cry.
But that's not all.
In spectacular finality, 2001: A Space Odyssey concludes with the return of the Star Child to Earth.
Now, remember how Kubrick opted to remove any mention of the nuclear warhead satellites? Well, Clarke had no scruples about ending the book with all-out war.
1,000 miles below, he became aware that a slumbering cargo of death had awoken and was stirring sluggishly in its orbit. The feeble energies it contained were no possible menace to him, but he preferred a cleaner sky. He put forth his will, and the circling megatons flowered in a silent detonation that brought a brief, false dawn to the half of the sleeping globe. Then he waited, marshaling his thoughts and brooding over his still untested powers. For though he was master of the world, he was not quite sure what to do next. But he would think of something.
And there you have it. Man has begun the next evolutionary stage, albeit not naturally, and this new alien-enhanced being is framed as a tangible deity and master of the world that evolved from.
We think it's safe to say that Kubrick's film is cryptic, since he chose to omit most of the essential exposition that would help to understand what the hell is going on.
The good news is you can always read the book and have everything explained to you.
Yay.
Where Clarke's version lacks the subtle poetry of Kubrick's film, it pretty much has to be read in order to understand what Kubrick had to say.
Thus, 2001: A Space Odyssey is a real win for collaboration. As with any Kubrick film, there's a lot left up for interpretation, so tell us what you think the movie is about in the comments below.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Cinefix for more awesome movie content every day.
So it's a Kubrick movie about space, space moo, what else starts with moo? Moon, moon landing, he shows land in the movie. Kubrick faked the moon landing. Anyone? 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 Anyone?